Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Continuing our discussion with Ambassador Shalaby. Your Excellency, the Foreign Ministry and Egypt have condemned the collapse of the ceasefire and the renewed Israeli airstrikes, especially on the southern part of the Gaza Strip. But are we surprised that this has happened? The truce and the ceasefire lasted for about almost a week, and prisoner swap took place. Now, a renewed Israeli airstrikes on the Gaza Strip. Are we surprised? Is the world surprised that they started off? I mean, they continued from where they left off.
Well, they have threatened, Netanyahu have threatened even before the ceasefire that it will continue, and he wants to get rid of Hamas. He wants to damage all the equipments of Hamas, and he thinks this is going to have to reach Israeli security. And of course, the world is watching, but the world is not also accepting that civilians are bombarded every day, and the numbers are increasing, whether they are women, children, and the incursion of the Israelis in the northern Gaza is going to go south, and this is the most difficult situation because this is where all the civilian population is there. So it is going to be a disaster, and it can never stop if they are going to continue this way, although there are still hostages. So I'm just worried about those hostages. How are they going to keep them safe if the incursion will continue from north to south? And also Hamas is adamant. They want to release all the prisoners that are still in the Israeli jails. So it's a continuous saga that I don't know when it's going to happen to stop, because the whole world is watching and there's nothing to stop them. Even the United Nations have failed. All all the diplomatic sources that have tried to do any kind of negotiation or mediation have failed. So Israel is continuing, and the world is watching, and I don't know when is it going to stop, or what will make it stop. If the United States is giving it the green light, it will continue.
Yes. Well, the ceasefire, I mean, it really constituted some sort of a breather for the whole conflict, and obviously a swap of the prisoners and the hostages took place. About 80 hostages and held by Hamas, and around 250 Palestinian prisoners from Israeli jails. So why was the ceasefire not extended to at least try and free all the hostages and try to free the agreed upon number of Palestinian prisoners? I mean, we are witnessing rallies taking place in Israel held by the families of the hostages. They really want the rest of the hostages coming back home. So why not extend the ceasefire for an extra few days? I mean, whatever it takes to have the swap to release all hostages and the Palestinian prisoners.
Well, we have requested, and Egypt with Qatar, with the United States have tried to pressure Israel to stop and to have an immediate ceasefire, to have a permanent ceasefire, but nothing is working, because there is a problem in Israel, because of course Netanyahu is in a very difficult position, and he has to continue the war, or else he is going to be out of the political scene. And of course, nobody can pressure him to do any peace negotiation now, because he is not accepted as a peace negotiator. So how can they start even any kind of mediation or negotiation? With whom from Israel, with whom from Palestine?
Mm-hmm.
There is nobody who represents Palestinian people. There's Netanyahu only who is there, and he's not accepted by the world. He's not accepted by anybody to sit as a peace negotiator. So both sides have to think of a future that does not have these political representatives, whether it is Hamas or Netanyahu.
Yes.
Because this war has been so ugly, and it has given the world a very bad image that strength and the power of war is the dominating power, and killing civilian is something that is natural and that is accepted. And for more than 8 weeks now, we have been seeing images of children and hospitals being bombarded, and women who have been killed, and civilians. This was never accepted. It is unprecedented that any country can be very flagrant in not accepting the international law or the international humanitarian law. And 111 relief workers from UNRWA have lost their lives just because they are helping the civilians. More than 55 press representatives lost their lives. Is this a normal war? Have you ever seen so much casualties and blood on TV and on social media? We have never seen so bad images of wars, except in films and in documentaries. But in real life, to see and to continuously every day on all the channels of the media, it is shocking.
Yes.
For me, this is like this war has changed the rules of the game, and that is why I'm surprised that it is continuing. And you are right to say, why is it continuing? Why there is no ceasefire now?
To at least get the hostages and the prisoners
there are
swapped.
still 127 hostages that I don't know how they are going. They are keeping them alive, or they have died. Or...
Well, the UN Under-Secretary of State for Security and Human Rights, Uzra Zeya, has actually commended the role played by Egypt in trying to push aid into the Gaza Strip. And obviously, Egypt has been playing a very important role, the Egyptian diplomacy, along with Qatar as well. So trying to mediate between both sides, trying to broker a ceasefire, trying to make the ceasefire permanent, trying to negotiate a swap between both sides. What is the main strategy that Egypt and Qatar are following to negotiate and mediate between both sides? What are the bargaining chips? I mean, except obviously for the prisoners and the release of the hostages, but what pressure points are being used and pressed by both sides, the Qatari side and the Egyptian side, along with Hamas and the Israeli side? Well,
Egypt from the first day requested ceasefire and requested that humanitarian aid be allowed through the Rafah border. And it has allowed all the double nationalities to cross the borders, and for all those who were injured or who needed medical assistance were allowed to go to the hospitals in Sheikh Soad or in Rafah, and also the El Arish airport was opened for all the humanitarian assistance to come and Egypt wanted to open the border for 24 hours, but it was not allowed. and the military checkpoints were so bad that it took ages until the trucks were allowed to go in.
Yes.
So it was really, until now, this is the position of Egypt. And the pressure points that Egypt can do is to pressure the United States, to pressure the EU members, to have some pressure over Israel in order to stop the bombardment. Maybe we can have a humanitarian pause. Let us call it humanitarian pause, because killing every day is not accepted by any country in the world. I don't see anybody accepting the killings of civilians. So there has to be a stop. There has to be rules of engagement. There has to be acceptance of rules of engagement so that they can both sides stop their incursions. Also on the northern border, also Hezbollah has to stop, and Israel have evacuated the civilians, also the Israeli civilians from the northern Gaza and the northern Israel, just like they evacuated their civilians from northern Gaza. So there are displaced Israelis in Israel, as much as there are displaced Palestinians. So this is not a life, like forced displacement of civilians because of a war that is not ending. And nobody knows what is coming in the day after. There is no plan for a peace settlement. There is no plan for peace negotiation, or even of a creation of a Palestinian state on the two-state solution. Nobody is discussing the day after the war is finished.
Well, a lot of political analysts and observers are saying, well, the only way out of this is a two-state solution, and others are saying there's no way this will actually happen. So what is true in that?
So there has to be discussions now about what is going to happen after. Like Egypt has firmly said that it's not going to accept any kind of forced displacement of Palestinians in Sinai.
Yes.
Or in any other, even Jordan, even Turkey. Not one country is accepting forced displacement, and the Palestinians themselves, they don't want to leave their country. So why push them out of their country? Why bombard, and why destroy their houses and their hospitals and their schools? So the solution now is to find a solution. The solution is to think of how the Palestinians are going to live after the war is over. Of course, we don't know when the war is going to end, but hopefully when they are tired, one of them will give up and will say, stop, and it's enough. All this bloodshed has been gone for nothing. So
yes. Well, Mrs. Ambassador, whenever we've been talking about the Middle East peace process and the Palestinian issue and the Palestinian cause and the conflict with Israel, we always spoke about ending the divisions among the Palestinians and having reconciliation talks, hosting reconciliation talks between Hamas and Fatah, and having really bridging the gap between the West Bank and Gaza. So how far is it? I mean, is the division still there, or are they both now united as a result of such a catastrophe, because the airstrikes and the shelling are taking place in both the West Bank and Gaza, and Many people have died in the West Bank. Many have been detained. So what is the situation now between the different factions, different Palestinian factions? Are they united? Should they be more united? Should there be a unified voice? And if they are unified, is it strong enough in terms of negotiating with the Israeli side?
Well, as you know, that the Palestinian Authority was weak, and of course there was no elections. It was postponed, and they didn't have proper elections since a long time. And Hamas was elected in Gaza. So Hamas is, of course, together with all the other factions in Gaza, are non-state actors. They are not applying any rules. They are fighting Israel, and there are no rules for them to respect. So what is happening now is that if the Palestinians want one authority to represent them, they have to combine the two authorities, like Palestinian Authority and Hamas. They have to get together and on a unified position. Now they are all on the same platform. They are even the Mahmoud Abbas have declared that we are supporting the Palestinian struggle against Israel, and we are asking for ceasefire and, of course, respect of civilians. But at the same time, there has to be there has to be a change of leaders on both sides. So that is why what is happening in the West Bank is very dangerous, because Israel is increasing the settlements and detaining, as you said, detaining more people every day on the West Bank. While Gaza is at war, they are taking advantage. And I remember that there was a strategy by the Israelis to separate Gaza and the West Bank, because their strategy is always divide and rule. So they didn't want the Palestinians to have a unified voice. They wanted always to have a weak Palestinian Authority and to encourage Hamas to become independent. And that is why this has happened. So even them in their media, they were saying that that Gaza is boiling, that something will happen, that it is going to burst because there was a blockage, and there were not the civilians were not allowed to go out of Gaza. It was blocked. So it's an occupying power blocking a Gaza Strip, which is a very small area inside of Israel, and not allowing the civilians to go out. And whoever goes out, they detain them for any reason, without even any reason. They just detain them. Even West Bank is the same, and they used to go and as labor, very, very cheap labor in Israel, and they were not allowed to move out of these two enclaves. So that is not a normal situation for any, even if an occupier is not, it's not a normal situation for an occupier. That is why there was a limit to what was happening, and this war on 7th of October was expected because of all what was happening in the West Bank and in Gaza.
Yes.
They could not have more of this kind of terrible treatment by Israel.
Well, Your Excellency, you've mentioned Hezbollah and quite recently as well two Iranian Revolutionary Guards military strategists who were actually killed by Israeli aggression. So is it expected that we would witness a stronger or more aggressive involvement by Hezbollah or Iran having a stronger involvement, a game-changing involvement within the conflict taking place there?
I don't think so, because the United States have warned many times that it does not want a regional war. And it's not good for Egypt or for Lebanon to involve Hezbollah in a bigger a war, because what Hezbollah is doing, actually Hamas and Hezbollah are under the same umbrella. You can say they are both non-state actors, and but they are so powerful, and they have, of course, Hezbollah is much stronger than Hamas. They have a whole army, but still they are kept in place by the United States so that they do not get more involved in northern Israel. So what they are doing is just like a kind of incursions that to keep the northern border, to keep Israel busy with the northern border, and not to just keep involved in Gaza, like to divide their attention between both.
So what would be next then? I mean, are we now going to, I mean, there's obviously a lot of humanitarian assistance provided by Egypt and the international community trying to get through the Rafah border crossing. Also, the Qataris' Emir sponsorship of 3,000 orphaned children from Gaza, and also helping with hospitalizations of the wounded and their companions as well. But what is next in terms of negotiations? So are we calling for a humanitarian pause? Are we trying to push for a ceasefire, a temporary or a permanent ceasefire? What are the next steps?
Well, Egypt is doing everything, actually. They are, as you have seen in the past week, there has been so many delegations coming, top delegations, and the prime ministers from Europe and from everywhere in the world. They came to Egypt to support Egypt's role, because Egypt has been doing so much in order to pass the humanitarian aid that has been flowing from all over the world. And Egypt has contributed so much also in the humanitarian aid itself. But the problem is that you have to be safe, in order to have the humanitarian aid pass through, there has to be safety hours in order to be able to cross the border. So we are pushing for everything, for negotiation with Hamas, with Qatar, with Jordan, and Egypt, and with other players also. And also at the same time, we are trying our best not to liquidate the Palestinian problem. We are trying to find solutions, and the President have also suggested several initiatives. So these initiatives are on the table for negotiations, because we have to always think of the future of the Palestinians who are going to survive after this disastrous ordeal.
Yes. Well, what about the international institutions? I mean, talking about the United Nations in general, the UNHRW, UNICEF, the WHO, they've all been condemning what's been taking place, and the UN Security Council. But this is as far as it really went. It's the public and general condemnation of what's taking place, the Israeli aggression on the Gaza Strip. Can any of these statements actually be translated into some sort of a resolution, or will the usual suspects veto any sort of resolution being trying to pass any sort of resolution?
Well, you have seen Antonio Guterres when he said, when he declared that this war was expected, he was criticized by the Israelis and ministers, and the agencies actually played a very good role, excellent role. WHO, UNICEF, WFP, all these agencies. Of course, the security, the Security Council is failing because of the veto. But the other agencies who are working in the humanitarian field, they are succeeding because they are doing their job. And actually, it's a very important job that is needed now. Also, I'm very proud of the Palestinians who are resilient, who are living there, and
Yes.
and they are facing so much problems in finding food or water or shelter or and medical equipment. It is very difficult life, and every day they are expecting to die. This life is really, really difficult, and I hope that it can end soon.
Yes. Well, how soon do you feel a humanitarian pause can take place? I mean, or how soon a ceasefire can take place for at least getting hostages and prisoners swapped, or getting through more humanitarian aid? I mean, for the ceasefire to take place earlier, that was a really good sign, but do you feel that another one can take place soon enough, or not soon enough?
Well, for the Israeli army, of course, it can take 4 or 5 months. They have declared that they can continue the war, but I don't think Hamas can continue for a longer war. So maybe we can expect sooner than later to have another ceasefire and exchange another swap of hostages, because there is a pressure from inside of Israel also, because they want the hostages back. And also from the international community, as you have seen, all the demonstrations, people don't want to see civilians killed, you know, like it's something natural. I do not know how the Israelis themselves accept to see all these civilians killed. It is not a fair war.
Yes. Well, one final question, because another point of view saying, well, maybe a total or complete swap of hostages and prisoners would not be such a good idea for Gaza, because if all hostages are actually being swapped, Hamas would have no bargaining chip, and that would only prompt a more aggressive Israeli airstrike and shelling for the Gaza Strip. So it's the wisdom of knowing exactly when to have a ceasefire and how much of a swap, the number of prisoners and hostages being swapped. What is the right thing to think, and the right strategy to try and go about this matter?
Well, there are two kinds of hostages. There are the military hostages and the civilian. The civilians, they are swapped against civilian prisoners.
Yes.
But the military hostages, I think Hamas wants a bigger bargain. They want to bargain for more than they are asking all the prisoners in all the Israeli, in all the Israeli prisons to be out. And I don't know when is this going to take place.
Yes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is an ever-developing situation taking place there. The numbers, the wounded, the the people killed, the numbers keep rising day after day. The negotiations and the Egyptian diplomacy is not taking a day off either, and hopefully a brighter sort of development would be taking place sooner rather than later. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this edition of the Daily Debate. Before we go, I'd like to thank my distinguished guest, Ambassador Soad Shalaby, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Your Excellency, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, please stay tuned for more coming up on Nile International. I'm Henny Saif. Thank you for joining us.